Well, good afternoon, everybody. I feel like I'm in Alexa's video where she made, good morning, good afternoon over and over
Oh
again.
yeah, right. You got to change it up now.
I know, because it starts to actually look the same. But welcome to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services. And today I'm joined once again by our co-host, young Ryan Finch, our Creative Technology Director. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Good afternoon. It is wonderful to be back. It's not a very nice day out, but we'll take it.
Well, but congratulations. This is your first show of
Oh,
2022.
that's right. It is. Oh,
So
do
a
I have
little
to?
small
Do I have
golf
to?
clap.
Yeah. Do I have to change things up too now? I don't know. Now I feel like I gotta. I'm still gonna say smash the subscribe button because I know how much you like it.
Wow, I
That's
wasn't
right.
ready for that one.
That's right. That's right. I'm jumping right into it because Wednesdays at 1 p.m. We're at 1:01. We're late. 1 p.m. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There you go. I'm making you jump around with the banners. While you're there, like I said, you can smash the subscribe button. You can like, you can comment, you can share. All the above, please. Of course, if you have a comment, you can drop us a line on any one of those channels that I just pointed out. You can send us a comment, and we're really live right now. We're really doing it live. So if you send a question in, we can answer it live. So please do that. And of course, come back every Wednesday because we're going to have wonderful guests and conversations just like the one we have lined up for you today.
Hey, Ryan, I just want to point something out. It's been gone for a little while, but Camera 2 is back.
Camera 2 is back, baby.
Camera 2 is back.
Right.
We were gone for a little bit, and I even have a little buffer in case I have to switch. Okay? You weren't ready for that. I know. Well,
No,
it's 2022.
you
have
gotta have
moves.
something. That's right. I still
New
got
moves.
this. I still got the same room divider. I got nothing for you. So
Yeah, well, we got to work on your lighting a little bit too. Half your face is a little
it's a long
brighter
story.
than the other half. Okay. Either way, this guy's in a rush. So we're going to have to bring this guy on real quick. So let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. We're going to, let me just take this off screen here, Ryan. We're going to be speaking to Ronnie Ram, president and founder of Inspiria Outdoor Advertising. Ronnie's a seasoned entrepreneur and has extensive experience in the development of individuals and teams and served as a corporate consultant for Dale Carnegie Training. Something I didn't know about him, right? In 2004, he was instrumental in establishing a business brokerage firm in New York City, one of the top companies in the Northeast that specializes in the brokerage of small businesses. Ram holds a master's degree in speech and interpersonal communication from New York University, where he graduated magna cum laude. He's a smart guy, too. Ronnie is an avid triathlete, active family man, and is heavily involved in philanthropic work. He was named co-chair of the Board of Trustees of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Connecticut, Westchester, Hudson Valley chapter in 2018 and continues to be an active volunteer. Ronnie's efforts have led to hundreds of thousands of dollars raised. Not too bad, Ronnie. Not too bad. That's why you're on the show, buddy. Ram was a recipient of the Rising Stars Award from the Business Council of Westchester and currently serves on their leadership committee, the Rising Stars Selection Committee, and is currently the co-chair of their annual Westchester Business Expo. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ronnie Ram.
Joe, thank you very much. And hi, Ryan. And I know where to come if I need photos of myself, Joe. I'm very impressed. Not just the modern ones, but you went back and found a couple old ones.
Don't worry, we're not done with you yet.
Digging through the archives, right?
Just be glad that one of our friends told me that one of those pictures didn't go to you. That's all. But, there's a lot on those interwebs. I mean, you can find anything out there.
That's
right.
But
Ronnie, you know what picture we did not show? Ryan, can you give me a solo moment for a second, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ronnie, just take a look at this picture for a second and tell me, what's wrong with this? I see somebody like throwing a shoulder in my face, really blocking me out of the picture, like going out of their way to make sure I am not part of it.
You got boxed out.
I got totally boxed out. I mean, and that's what we say. It's good team.
Wow.
See what I did there, Finch?
You went to camera 2.
I had to go to camera 2 for a dramatic moment. But either way, sorry, Ronnie. You boxed me out. What could I do? But but tell us, how you been?
I've been great. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone's healthy. I think everyone is glad that we got past another year and is optimistic that this will be a happier and a healthier year for families out there, for people that kind of really struggled. But I'm an optimist by nature, so I'm always trying to look at the positive things. So Omicron, I said, great. At least it's not as devastating as Delta. So that's the hope. But the good news is people seem to be optimistic with us, and business has been great, and we're excited for 2022.
I think that's good news all around. You're definitely a glass half full type of person.
Yes.
And that's the kind of energy I think a lot of people need right now.
Yes.
Because you can get negative pretty quick.
Absolutely. The alternative is depressing, so you may as well focus on going forward and making things happen in your life.
Absolutely.
I agree completely with you on that regards. I think a lot of people don't really know a lot about, outdoor advertising. And so it's probably a good place for us to start. Tell us about Inspiria and how'd you get into billboards and advertising anyways?
Sure. So, Inspiria Outdoor is an outdoor advertising media agency. So what that means is when a client comes to us and says, hey, I want to reach a certain clientele, no matter if I want to reach a male demographic, a female demographic, young people, older people, our job is to help them find the right media to do that. So, for example, everyone's familiar with McDonald's, right? One of the most recognizable brands in the world. They are avid users of outdoor advertising. If you've ever driven on a highway, it's likely you saw a McDonald's billboard that says next exit here, or some other ad that promotes getting off at an exit to provide a service. That's what outdoor advertising does, right? It connects consumers with brands, and it also educates, essentially gives them brand lift, right? Outdoor advertising is all about awareness. And the concept is if someone's aware of your brand, that tends to give you more credibility. If it gives you more credibility, they're more likely to use your services. So to answer your first part of the question is what Inspiria does is exactly that, right? We help connect consumers and brands by identifying the right media formats that's going to help them make that connection. And we do that all over the country. Locally here in Westchester, we are very involved with the Westchester community, but the majority of our business is done in the New York City tri-state area, Los Angeles, Boston, Chicago, Miami, Texas, really anywhere the client wants to reach those clientele. And that's a picture of me during COVID, obviously, having our company name on the NASDAQ board, one of the most recognizable boards in the world.
It's very cool.
Second part of your question is how I got into it, but it kind of goes back. My marketing and advertising career goes back about 21 years. I worked for a firm out in Chicago in year 2000 that sold newsletters to CPA firms and law firms all over the country. And at the time, we didn't use the word content, but essentially that's what it was. So we would provide language content newsletters, and a CPA firm or an actual accountant would say, I want to buy the rights to this content, put my name on it, and send that out to my clients or prospective clients. And that's where my marketing career began. And again, they didn't call it content in that. And marketing and advertising, I think a lot of people ask, what's the difference, right? And you can think of marketing as one big pie, and advertising, or what I do, is a small slice of that pie. And everybody has different skill sets, right? There's PR, there's digital marketing, and everything else. My area of expertise is now outdoor advertising. It's an area I really like, I really enjoy. There's a lot of work that goes into the planning, but we're very, very excited to show the delivery, the finished product. Here's your billboard, here's your campaign, here's how effective it was. And people love to see their brand out on a billboard or any sign.
Absolutely. So I think it's kind of interesting, Ronnie, that the advertiser advertises.
Yes.
I mean, that's like putting your money where your product is, right?
Absolutely. And one of the big shifts I think you can make, and if you take a look at any business owner or business, when you look at their, P&L, forget about the numbers, the way somebody looks at that marketing and advertising line item, if they look at it as an investment, they tend to spend more based on a return on investment. And I always try to tell our clients and prospects, you want to look at, it's not just something cost. Of course, there's a cost of doing something, but what's the potential return on investment if more people know who you are? What's the return on investment if you can get one more client? I've always looked at it as not how much do I spend, but how much can I spend to continue to be the leader in my field. And I think that's really, really critical, shifting your mindset from marketing and advertising as an expense to an investment. And I'm sure the same goes with you guys and what you do for the clients that you serve, getting them up in front of them, making that presentation even more dynamic than they can ever imagine. Makes a big difference in the eyes of their customers. And that's what we do for ours.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, we certainly look at our services as helping, a client achieve an outcome that they wanted to get. And of course, to get the outcome, you have to invest into the input, so to speak. But one thing you touched on, I'm interested about, because admittedly, I don't know a lot about the differences. You said you specialize in outdoor. What attracts you to outdoor advertising that's different than, say, indoors or commercial or some of the other channels that I'm probably not thinking off the top of my head right now?
No, not at all, Ryan. That's a great question. So I think it's just the way my mind works and how I've always been interested in real estate. In my bio, we did mention I was a business broker, and that is essentially transactions. It had a lot to do with negotiating contracts, leases, opportunities. I did other things in that realm. I've always enjoyed the planning and the strategy, but the finished product that I want to see is that either transaction of the sale of a business or the acquisition of a business or the billboard. So for my clients, while there's a lot of return on investment stuff that comes after, did it lift the brand? Did they get more awareness? Did they get more clicks on their website? And everybody has a different goal. What I really enjoy is putting together the plan and strategizing on how do I reach that clientele based on this budget very effectively, and then physically being able to see that. It started back in 2009 when we met with a client. We were selling publishing a print ad to that said, I'm not really interested in the magazine, but I'd love to be on Metro North. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I went back to the office and started Googling, how do you place an ad on Metro North? And long story short, it really made a lot of sense to me. I love the numbers. I loved analyzing ridership, cost per thousand CPM or cost per thousand impressions. I love to analyze who you're reaching and how to reach those people based on who that person wants to reach. Whether it's a local ad, he just says, hey, we deliver, or we are here, order on the train, pick up when you get here, or something very, very intricate where it's launching, a digital coin, an NFT product, or anything like that, or a launch of a brand. We did several campaigns recently for Adidas affiliated influencers in Los Angeles. I've always loved seeing that finished product, more of like a black and white finished product. I never had the mind to get into a lot of the minutia details of digital advertising. And that's why I always felt if you stay in your lane and do one thing really, really well, you can always refer everything out and work with good partners.
It's funny, Ryan, I'm just going to bring this up on screen quick.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things I noticed about your website, because it looks like you've done some work on it, is very specific. And I think that's really great, because that's something that we've always tried to focus on too, is, okay, look, not everybody can be good at everything. So, and I think that that's important. And I noticed that right from your website right away. But
Yeah,
so who are the types of organizations that would typically use your services?
Yeah. So without giving the everything, so typically business to consumer, number one, right? So for people out there, right, there's B2C, which is business to consumers, any company or business that sells to the consumer, an individual or individuals. And then there's companies that sell to others. That's called B2B. Typically, and for us specifically, we typically sell B2C with some exceptions. That are businesses that want to sell to consumers. Let me give you some examples. It could be healthcare clients that want to attract people in a community. It could be for hiring because they need, and that's happening a lot today. I'd say a substantial amount of our ads now are hiring. People can't hire. It's all over the news. It's a reality. So no matter if it's Domino's Pizza, we did several campaigns for them of hiring truck drivers, CDL, they need to get them, hiring nurses, daycare staff, school staff. That's one example. Another example is education, charter schools and the like, recruiting students. Those are great examples too. Home improvement and real estate, what they want to do is really brand awareness and lift. Same thing. Why would a realtor advertise locally beyond, Zillow and everything else? Because again, it comes down to if they're aware of who you are, you have natural credibility. If you have credibility, the chances that somebody will click on a digital ad substantially increase. And the facts are, statistically, it can be a 300% increase if they're familiar with the brand that they'll click on you. So they work really, really well, hand in hand. But we go across every industry. Entertainment, promoting shows and events. Those tend to be shorter campaigns. And then you have hospitals and other types of businesses that do very long-term campaigns. It's all about reach. Whom can I reach? And frequency. How often can I reach that client? And the smartest advertisers, when they have something that works, they lock it in, right? They want to own a specific area to either maintain or increase their market share. And generally, no matter if we're speaking to a local small business or a very substantial business, you can have a conversation that makes a lot of sense with return on investment.
Oh, it's all, right on point. I mean, we certainly are not in a B2C space, so I can't, I can't speak to that. It seems like you'd be more going after the masses, right? We're going after larger numbers. I mean, are there instances of B2B outdoor advertising that work? I mean, can we put a big corporate AV billboard outside of Pepsi's office or something? Does it work?
Sure.
Like that?
Exactly. So, why not? AVX Live could be everything.
So Ryan, where we do a lot of B2B work is conventions, right?
Oh, okay.
So you have not just CES in Vegas, but anytime there's a convention or event, businesses that sell to that clientele. So a lot happens in Javits Center. If there's a convention in Javits Center and it's a technology convention, there are so many sponsors and vendors that want to get in there. So they'll do everything from sponsoring double-decker buses to billboards outside, targeting the hotel. So that's a very, very common, easy thing to execute. We've executed things targeting the entire journey. A client may say, there's a convention in Boston that I want to target. The majority of the people are coming from Chicago. So we can target Chicago Airport, then have people see that ad again when they land at Logan, and then take a look at the route, maybe have taxi tops to continue that journey, and then take a look. We'll help map the host hotels, the convention center, and say, how often can we have somebody see that ad? Or even do something experiential where you rent a double-decker bus, customize it, wrap it, and then offer free rides around. So there's a lot that can be done. Now, to your comment about reaching the masses, absolutely, you can reach the masses, but you can also be very, very highly targeted as well. Mm-hmm. An example of reaching the masses might be a billboard on, let's say, I-95 or I-87. An example of targeting can be a particular bus shelter, train station ad, or Grand Central. It can be as simple as, I want to target everybody going into Grand Central. I want to target people in Times Square. I want to target people flying to Florida from Westchester County Airport. Or landing in Miami, a very large airport, but a very specific gate. So we can pinpoint a very specific gate or a supermarket that people shop in.
Oh, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So I see the difference. Then obviously you go big, and then you can get a little bit more focused and specific. So before we move on, Ronnie, we did have one question come in from the audience. So
sure.
I'm sure this is off the top of my head, but I'd have to imagine that the world of outdoor advertising meets digital is somewhat blended when we talk about LED, right? And digital real estate.
Sure.
One question that came in from the audience: can you comment on the use of LED technologies and other high-end systems to increase attention for outdoor marketing? Is that something that you see? Is that something you get involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a huge shift to digital billboards and media over the past few years. There's a shift to programmatic, and that's a secondary kind of conversation. You can have a whole conversation about that. But digital, and specifically LED technology, has been increasing, not just in the quality, but in how often somebody can target and place an ad. So here's an example. You used to drive on the highway and you really wanted to buy a billboard, let's say on I-95 in Connecticut, to use a local example. At the time, it was only one static billboard. There could be one advertiser, and that advertiser, because it's such a good billboard, would never leave. A lot of those have been converted to digital. What that does is essentially it went from one slot or one advertiser to 6 or 8 advertisers. So that's number one, right? So the benefit is you can sell more people as a landlord, but for the end user, the advertiser, now they can get into that billboard they couldn't get into before. Number two is because it's digital, it draws attention to the eye. And I think that's part of what this the person that I think it was Jim,
yep.
Was asking. It draws a lot of attention to the eye. Naturally, when there's movement, digital by light or digital in terms of movement, that's a moving picture. That is a billboard. It was freezing. It may have been 15 that day, right before New Year's, and I had my sign up wishing happy holidays, and I went there, and I could only take my hat off for a few seconds at a time. But it really attracts the eye when it moves. It also allows people to change their ad. So you can do that based on the weather. You can do that based on a promotion of the weekend. McDonald's will have now, whenever they take a digital billboard, using them, it's an easy example. They may do the breakfast special from 5 a.m. till 10 a.m., and then they may promote lunch and so on and so forth. We have other clients in the city. They can take a digital ad in the subway or a bus shelter, and they may have 3 or 4 creatives because they want to attract 3 or 4 different people. They may have a creative that attracts an older clientele, a younger clientele, a female demographic, or a male demographic, or they may just change that creative almost like a countdown as things go near. So to answer the question, kind of wrap up the answer, LED had a major, major impact on the entire industry of outdoor. It will continue to have a big impact, not just because what advertisers and brands can do, but because the money it can generate for the landlords and ultimately the municipalities. You may not get 8 times the revenue if it's 8 advertisers, but you certainly will get more than what you were getting on a static speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It almost seems like there's no boundaries once you add in the digital. Like there's no beginning and end to
It's
it.
limitless.
I mean, that's pretty good from a selling ad space perspective, I think.
Yeah, right.
See, we end up dealing with a lot of supply and demand.
Yep.
So,
I
the
see where you're going
ballroom
with
can only hold so many people. There's literally a sign that says it can hold X number of people. And of course, today we have different restrictions going on about what can be in that room. But the digital signage is totally different, right? I mean, if it was just print, that's all you got. Like it's up there for a while. But the fact that you're going to rotate them out, that makes sense for the real estate owners and the municipalities. That's fantastic.
It's very
And
efficient.
remember, so and there's the pros and the cons, right? And the pros, I think, can outweigh the cons. But one of the cons that was a big factor for a lot of people, especially when you're accustomed to doing something a certain way, is that you're sharing space. You no longer have what we call 100% share of voice. And when you're driving on a highway and you imagine that ad lasts 8 seconds in a 64-second loop, when the traffic is not backed up, all of a sudden, not every person will see your ad. And that was one of the biggest objections, and it still is to some people. Now, the other side of the coin is it does allow you the ability to be very nimble, to start a campaign quickly. Maybe you can afford to buy a second billboard because of that. But there are pros and cons of both. There are some people that still do not want to share the space. But to your point, Joe, it did open up a lot of opportunities for people and to shift around. You can advertise 1 week here, 1 week somewhere else. And in areas like Times Square, that's done, tremendous people. And that was a place that used to be static, which is now predominantly digital advertising.
Well, let's shift a little bit from the actual technology. Let's look at it's March of 2020.
Yep.
You're flying along. I know what happened with our business and how the pandemic affected us, but how did it affect the outdoor advertising world?
Yeah, I mean, it was like driving a car into a brick wall, right? So the outdoor advertising is divided into a couple of categories. Billboards, the physical billboards, we call them outdoor. You have airports, Clearly, we know that airports, a lot of them shut down, flights shut down, people stop traveling. You have transit, things like buses, but there's buses and then there's also trains and commuter rail. So in different parts of the country, it affected things differently. So in areas like New York, Boston, Chicago, really anywhere with a commuter rail system where people were taking mass transit, that got hit hardest, fastest, and also lasted the longest. Because when people don't commute, you have a huge amount of dollars that have been spent by advertisers and brands year over year to attract people as they're sitting down in a train. And imagine the power of that. You know, you can advertise at a train station, which is good, very good for local, very targeted. But if you advertise inside the train, no matter where you are in the world, you have a captive audience for 30, 40, sometimes an hour. And that was very powerful. And it cost a lot of money. When things happened back in March of 2020, and we first thought that was going to be a 2-week, 3-week, maybe 2-month run, right? Nobody thought when they packed up their stuff, hey,
Correct.
just grab your laptops. If you had laptops, a lot of companies didn't. Don't even take your phones. We'll do something for a few days and we'll see what happens. So initially it was a triage, right? It was triage. Our job was to represent our clients, pause contracts, reassure them that we're here for them. We're going to survive this. And several months was spent saying, how can we help mitigate the risk for our clients? Because our clients were affected as well. If you were a retail business, forget about your advertising dollars. You may not be generating any money right now. Hospitals were not doing elective surgeries. Restaurants were not seeing people patronizing them. So the first few months was triage before the shock even kind of got you. And then it substantially affected most people's business. So, I mean, 2020 was a horrible year financially. But if you ran your business responsibly, hopefully you came out of it. We came out of it very, very strong. We didn't lose any clients except for clients that, unfortunately, there were a few clients that didn't make it. They're just industries were hit so hard, they never survived. It affected us that way. But we renegotiated contracts on behalf of our clients. We paused campaigns and we pushed them. Everything we can do in an effort to help our clients continue to maintain their business out there. And the second thing we did is we shifted a lot of our clients that maybe were advertising indoors in places to other media. We had people on train stations that went to supermarkets. We had people in malls that shifted to billboards. And we continued to do that until, they kind of told us to do something different, right? And we checked in a lot more often. I'd say once you set a plan into motion, you're constantly looking at stats and you're checking in with your clients. But I'd say last year, the year before last and last year, we were speaking to our clients a lot more regularly to make sure that the plan is working, they're sound financially, and figure out where and if they want to shift. And that was really, really important. One of the big lessons, I think, in life and in business is you never ignore a phone call, right? You may not want to take it. It may not be good news, but you never ignore a client. You're always responsive. It's one of the things that I think led to our success as a company. We're very, very reactive, very responsive as an organization. And there were a lot of tough conversations and phone calls. And there are situations where you're not going to make out necessarily so well financially, but it's more important to maintain your reputation, move forward, and help a client through a really, really tough time. So we shifted, and things are starting to go back. They have been going back at maybe some reduced rates, but clients really, really appreciate that. And I'd say the goodwill and the loyalty that you've built up getting through those times is really, really tough to quantify, but I can tell you it's substantial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, communication, obviously, especially in, we'll call it crisis time, is just uber important. And I'm sure, you relied on your history that Joe pointed out in your lengthy introduction earlier that, right. that happens to be a strength of yours. And that's really great. And honestly, your experience in the pandemic is somewhat different than ours, obviously both, challenging. We had really one very, very big problem, which was there's no work, at least for the beginning stages of it.
Yep.
And so in that regard, we relied on our own leadership to get us through that. But, shifting gears into your side, we talk a lot about leadership on this show. So
Sure.
I'm curious if you had any, obviously communication you pointed to, but it sounds like I thought it was interesting. You pointed out you had very different problems in different regions. And so I would imagine communication becomes even more important at that point to diagnose and deal with each issue. But were there any habits or anything that you leaned on in those times that helped you lead the organization during such a chaotic time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think looking at two things, looking at your core business, what are you here for? What can you provide clients? And number two is, how can you leverage your staff and what are they unique at? What are they really good at, right? So realizing, as I mentioned before, I'm more strategy, big picture, and I have people on my staff that are very, very specific and they can get into the nitty-gritty details. Working really well as a team is so critical, and I don't just say that as kind of like a blasé comment. I know we're going to talk a little bit about technology, but the first thing we did once we knew that this was going to last more than a few weeks is we ordered more voice over IP phones, ordered laptops, and had everyone on our team essentially duplicate what they had here. So instead of taking your laptops home, we sent laptops to them. We duplicated the voice over IP technology. So if I ring somebody's desk here on my phone, it's the same thing as what happens when I ring in from my home office, and the same thing for them, to make sure that's seamless. We know so many companies, people weren't answering their voicemail. They weren't answering their direct lines anymore. And that still continues today, very surprisingly, that people still have not, don't forward their phone calls or direct dial something else, shift the messages or anything like that. We embraced it. As much as I don't know enough about technology, I know people that do. And I called them and said, hey, I want this to be seamless. I want us to be the company that picks up the phone on the first ring, just like we always did. And that was really, really critical. So back to that, I mean, I talk to my team more often, especially for the first 6 months, not just checking in, but relearning how to work on a more remote basis. We're now we came back last September, a year and 4 months ago. We're here 3 days a week and 2 days at home. We're going to maintain that indefinitely as far as I'm concerned right now. So, but before we came back, we were home for over 6 months until we were, given authorization essentially by New York State that we can come back safely, and what changes, what parameters we had to institute to do that. But leaning on my staff and asking them, how can we do this, shifting the way we're doing. And interestingly, we never took the gas pedal off for our marketing and advertising. And I was happy to see that other people did, because that was good for me. But that was the last thing you want to cut, and I continued it. So I'd say, one of the leadership lessons I'd say I can impart, based on your question, is leverage your team. It's really hard. It was always hard for me to ask for help. But I think beyond asking for help, it's just understanding who you have on your team and what they're capable of. If you ask them their opinion and ask them to do something for you and take it over to make it easier, because it is a little more difficult for us to work on the days that we're remote. I can't just open my office door and go have a chat with someone and say, who's working on this, who's working on that. Right. Sometimes the downside of technology is I have to call and say, hey, did somebody call that person? Who's working on this? Can you help me with that? Can you email that to me, or do something else, as opposed to just taking a look at someone's screen? But that's the world we live in. Right. And you have to shift if you want to be successful and provide value to your clients.
Well, let's go right into some more with the technology part, because, you mentioned the voice over IP, duplicating what people had in the office so that they had that at home to be seamless, and certainly laptops. And, even, Ronnie, we have, I don't know if you've ever been over here, but we have a lot of equipment. And we have
I've been there for concerts, Joe. I know you guys do other work too, but I've been there for concerts in your warehouse.
We have a lot of equipment. When this all started, because of doing the streaming remotely, because we stream in a variety of ways, none of our computers could actually handle that kind of. And we're laughing like, so these 60 computers are. like junk, or, So I mean, you make a good point about investing into the technology to lead your team and make them comfortable. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the other things that how your team uses technology on a daily basis, especially if they're at home 2 days a week.
Sure,
But
and
you
it's
must have
interesting.
to communicate, right?
Yeah, and different people at different ages use technology differently, right? So,
I
and
think
to
you're
be,
very young. I think you're very
yes,
young. That's all I'm saying.
yes, exactly. So, I have one person on my staff that we use a chat feature on Google because not only is it something that he finds very easy, but it's effective in so far as it's easy to find the string of conversations. If we're talking about pricing options and strategy and things like that, he says, hey, tell me what you were thinking about that. It's easy for me to just kind of put that in and be able to access it instead of looking through a bunch of emails. That's number one. Number two, as I mentioned before, the voice over IP phones are exceptional because not only that, but programming them correctly so that you can see who's on the phone and what someone's, who's accessible at the time. You can conference calls, you could do everything else. So it was not just setting up the phones, but getting people trained to be able to do that. Third thing is things like Zoom, whatever technology feature you use, we embraced it quickly, got a company account and learned how beyond the pandemic, and hopefully they're talking about, renaming this an endemic. Hopefully that would be great news at some point in the very near future, but learning how to present in a different way. And that a lot of companies, a lot of our clients have staff that are working from home and they don't have an access to their own phone. They don't want to make phone calls. So you have to be able to use Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Zoom, whatever is preferable to you or to them. So you can, one, give them an opportunity to communicate with you in a way that makes your life easier too. If you need to speak to somebody on the phone, that's great. And so it's a great tool to have, but you can also present. So learning how to present on Zoom is, to some people, it's very easy. It's very natural. Some people, it doesn't come so easy. And that was really important. And I think it's a great tool. And again, I use Zoom as kind of like the universal Band-Aid, but it can be whatever it is that you prefer. But and for people that don't know what I mean, Band-Aid brand versus the
Right.
Band-Aid when you get a cut.
It's like Scotch tape. Yeah.
But it's a great tool because we used to go sometimes and make a physical presentation in someone's office or have them come here. And there isn't a reason all the time. There's certainly a reason to have human contact to build a relationship. But in many cases, it's preliminary, or you have people in different parts of the country that need to see the visuals, and visuals sell. That's your business, right? Not just it's audio and video. Visuals sell. When I can walk someone through something, when I can show them how something works, right? And my favorite Steve Jobs quote is, design is not how something looks, it's how something works, right? So when you can show them, and when I say something works, a video of people flowing through Times Square and how that billboard works for them by reaching all these people, and you see people taking photos and sharing, that's a really, really great tool. So I look at technology clearly is always changing, right? It's changing at I think every year, as I've been in business 28 years. And every year they're like, oh, it's changing faster than it ever has. And every year it's changing faster than it ever has. But the lesson is evolving to that change. Like you have to evolve. You don't have to adopt everything, but you have to evolve and understand what can help you serve your clients in the best way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were a ton of great points in there, Ronnie. I think one of them that I picked out that I liked the most was something that we, in the technology space feel, which is sometimes you have to speak their language. And that could now mean a tool that they choose to use. I mean, sometimes people are like, oh, yeah, we use Teams. And we're like, oh, man. Like now we're going to all have to use Teams because, we've gotten used to working a certain way. And to be honest, I don't particularly like Teams very much. But, my opinion, it doesn't trump what a company. No, yeah. But, it's... Yeah, it's important to to speak their language in many ways. But I guess if there's one question I want to ask you, as somebody who is now giving presentations for the first time, obviously it's a lot of the work we do on the virtual side now to help with. is there a wish list? Is there something that you wish was better or wish was easier with regards to presenting in a virtual environment? I don't know if that's an easy question or a tough question, but is there anything that so far you're like, man, I wish I didn't have to deal with this?
Well, the only thing that comes to mind, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is when you are using different technologies, let's say Zoom, Google Meet, or Teams, everything's different. There's such a learning curve for people. So if somebody asks you, again, I'll use Zoom more often so I know how to share a screen and I can talk someone through doing that. And again, I do not consider myself a technology savvy person, but when you use, everything's easy when you know what you're doing, right? So when you learn how to do one, you can do it. I saw a lot of people struggled with things like virtual background, right? Zoom, again, was a little more intuitive, but they go on something else. They couldn't figure out how to do it. So I would love it if things were the same. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they have differentiators for a reason. But I would love for that to happen. I think it would be pretty cool if there was something integrated where when you're showing a Zoom beyond, and there probably is, right? Beyond trying to move your cursor and ask somebody if they see what you're doing, almost like the whiteboard technology, which was the coolest thing in the world. And I'm sure there is, you guys probably know, where you can circle something and say, hey, you see this? Do you see that? That's what I mean with this. And let me slide it.
Ronnie, offline, we're going to blow your mind, I promise.
That's above my pay grade, but, that's okay.
Yeah, why can't everything be a little more like Zoom? Honestly, I ask myself that question quite a lot, and I do recommend it as a tool quite a lot as far as virtual events go. But
listen, my greatest desire is that people, when you call customer service, will actually pick up their phone.
Pick up the phone? Yeah.
I don't think you could help me with that. It took me 99 minutes to get somebody from Disney on the phone. 99 minutes. So,
that's too long.
But that's the way it is today, and unfortunately, people are accustomed to it.
That is true. Those are some, I call it like the self-service environments,
That's right.
All of a sudden now you're made to do everything that technically somebody's paid for to do. Like somebody else is supposed to be doing that job.
And there is your opportunity to stand out, right? So you figure in your industry, in your business, what are people not doing well? What do your customers, Ryan, you asked me a question, right? What do your customers, what would they like to see more of? And do that really, really well and figure out a way to make sure people recognize that. And you'll elevate yourself in the company brand.
You're well said, Ronnie. I can see why you have all those degrees now. I mean, I read them in the bio. So.
Listen, but most degrees in $2.75 can get you on the New York City subway. And I think that's only if you have a Metro card. It might be more if you're paying for a single ride.
Now, not to say that you shouldn't advertise there, but you could if you look at all these different options. Just go to the website.
That's right.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you. But so, because of again, we kind of want to focus on the digital nature for a second, but, it's right before all this happened. I want to say it might have been like 2018, 2019, but we were doing our own internal meeting, and there was a slide that I had used for something that said like 80% of people are going to be watching videos every single day in 2 more years or something. Right. And now, once all this happened, literally, I mean, look at Netflix, look at Disney, all these channels, right? They all have their own streaming channel, which, of course, all you need to have is like 3 of them, and it costs more than your cable bill did.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody has 3 of them.
Absolutely.
Because there's one show.
You just need one show. Exactly. You need one show on,
it's only
on Paramount, one on Apple TV
month.
Plus. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, we've talked to a number of people that have studios and they work for groups like Netflix because they have to put out so much content.
Yep.
People are just consuming it like crazy. But I guess that's why, to me, the digital side is really interesting. But how important is the video marketing side for your clients? And what do you think is kind of the future of advertising with that?
Well, video, I don't know about the video. Well, I guess you said video marketing. Maybe I think about it a little different.
I think they're tied together. I guess that's in my head when I see a giant billboard, and I tend to think of it as video. I can tell you
that video increases engagement, right? I don't know what those stats are, but I can tell you that the usage of video in digital, it's the number one question we get asked when someone's looking at any digital asset as opposed to a physical static asset. Static meaning like a vinyl billboard. or a Subway ad. Whenever we look at digital assets, which are more and more, I mean, they're growing exponentially in popularity. The first question is, can I do a movie, MOV or MP4? Can I do a movie? In most cases, it is, because it increases engagement, right? You have more opportunities there to attract the person by visually moving, to attract more people by something in that video capturing that attention. Consciously or subconsciously, you see something in that video that was, and to tell a story, right? With videos, it's about the ability to tell a story. And if you can tell a story through that video, that image, it could be something, romantic as a proposal, or, launching an NFT cryptocurrency, or showing somebody happy using your product or service. It can do a lot for you. We know that, right? Television has been using videos forever. That's what television is. The rest of the world hasn't. Radio is basically telling stories without the pictures, right? But you're telling a story is what it's attracting. So the video element in outdoor advertising, or in general, is telling a story in a different way. And sometimes the challenge is, how do we tell that story? Like larger brands may have a department, an outside company like yours that are developing it. And other people, the challenge is they're going, how do you tell that story in a way that can make sense to the end user? How can we increase engagement? And they test, and you can test multiple different videos and see which one increased that engagement.
Right.
So I think it's a huge thing. As I mean, it's the number one question we get once the conversation is either shifted to or begins with digital. It's, can I put a video up? How many seconds is the video? And can I put more than one? Can I change it?
Well, Ronnie, I don't know if this is a follow-up question or more of just a genius recommendation on my side.
Sure.
I'm calling it genius. I know. Because
Ryan's going to go on one of those double-decker buses. We're going to put his genius head on.
Oh, man. Well, wait till you hear it first, and then you may double back.
Joe said you have a genius idea once every 3 months, so this is it. Let's go.
Okay. Well, so obviously the young kids, in the kids' corner, as we call it in the office, they use these TikToks, and before that it was Vine. And the coolest thing about that was you find people who can make you laugh or get some sort of emotional response out of you in like 3 to 5 seconds, just a little bit of creative piecing together, and you have a story that it tells a 1,000-word story in just a couple of seconds. So maybe the future of outdoor advertising is tapping into the Gen Z and getting them to comment on how do we tell a story in 6 seconds, because their attention spans are so short. And I'm talking like I'm talking about them like I'm so disconnected from them, maybe a few years, but they sure seem like they think a little bit differently. Anyway, I don't know if that's off base or not, but it kind of feels like telling a story in a short amount of time, right? I mean,
absolutely. And I guess two points come to mind. One is, when you look at something like Times Square, the number one reason people do it there is engagement and social shares. So the amount of people that share from Times Square is so substantial. And then people take that, they do regular shares, they do TikTok videos around a screen. We had a client that was making a movie about a guy that wakes up and he's married to 100 women. Could have been 200, I don't remember exactly. And he brought brides and dresses to Times Square and did a lot of short videos in front, with the video in the background, right? There's a lot of things like that. So one thing comes to mind is yes, people are sharing on things that I don't even understand. But the second thing that I have applied is, I don't need to understand it as the business owner. I just need to have my staff, let them be aware of it. And they find engagement, they find leads, they see what the people are doing, and let them run with it. Because the other alternative is I don't understand it, so I don't want to do it. And that in my opinion, is a bad answer. So the best answer is, look, I don't need to learn how to do it. If I trust my staff and they understand it, that's good enough for me. So leverage all the people that you have, leverage their unique abilities, and again, just keep providing value to your clients, and run your business. Again, I believe stay in your lane, run your business really well, and do the right things for those around you. And I think you'll succeed.
I think that is an excellent summary, Ronnie. You know,
So
and that applies to
I think
anything.
it's time for my fourth espresso of the day as we, I think, are parting ways soon.
We are parting ways. We're about 5 minutes longer than I told you we were going to be. So,
Good.
we have to keep this show
All
rolling
good.
here.
Exactly.
And, but listen, I appreciate all your time today. I think everybody can take just a lot from this discussion. And I want you to get back to organizing all those papers and signs and everything that are behind you over there. There's just
For
so
the
much
audience,
going on.
I got to tell you, I cleaned up for this call, and Joe, I thank you very much, and Ryan too. It looks like a little delay, but we've been trying to coordinate this, and I appreciate being on and given an opportunity to talk a little bit. This has been a lot of fun.
Likewise, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
I see he's going to have to take this question with him, but I see our friend Mike Dardano wrote something in. He wants to know what you think about car traffic in Manhattan. Once congestion
pricing happens.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like something that might be beyond your control here.
Well, I can tell you the second part of that question is how, so Mike Dardano, who many of us know and love, I think we all love, maybe not everybody knows. What does Ronnie think about car traffic to Manhattan once congestion pricing happens? How will that affect those highway billboards? So I can tell you that, number one, highway billboard traffic or ridership, and that's tracked by the MTA in different municipalities, bridges, tunnels, that is back to not just pre-pandemic, but that has increased. And that's a reason why when people stop commuting or working from the house, they still have to go shopping, right? They still have to go to the supermarket. They still have to get out of the house for their own mental health. And people have been around. That's why a lot of markets without heavy commuter markets or companies that have opportunities for their employees to drive there versus commute on mass transit weren't affected as much. And unfortunately, a lot of essential workers still had to commute during these times regardless. But Mike, to answer your question, I don't think it's going to change much. I think the people that drive are going to drive if they want to drive because it's convenient, it's easier, and they feel like it's safer to them. I don't think congestion pricing is going to change. I also think there's already been an increase. Ridership is going up on all the MTA properties in New York. It's going up across the country. It remains to be seen how aggressively that goes up. But I think companies have made it clear that a return to office in some way is essential. It's important to them. Let's put essential aside. It's important to them. I don't think that's going to change. But so I don't think that's going to change, Mike. I think there's going to be still a lot of cars on the road for whatever reason it is. And the people that drive are going to continue to drive. And I got to tell you, I take the train not often. It's packed. There's a few fewer trains. That probably leads to more people on the same train, but it's packed out there. So things are definitely increasing.
Well, there we go. Mr. Dardano, you have the answer to your question because the all-knowing Ronnie Ram has provided it for you. Ronnie, we are going to let you go. We bid
Thank
you
you very
adieu.
much.
Have a great day. We're going to catch up to you soon. Ryan and I are just going to talk well in front of your back in just a second.
Make it a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks,
Take care, Ronnie.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Finch, I think we've learned a lot today.
We certainly have. I thought that was honestly, I really don't know a lot about advertising. It is something that has always interested me. Having an artistic background, and obviously we've talked a lot about our marketing efforts as a company, and obviously video marketing, and it all goes hand in hand, just like Ronnie said about talking about a 300% increase on the efficacy of your digital ads using outdoor billboard space. That's not something you'd think, but it makes sense that everything goes hand in hand, right?
Well, I think, honestly, just like their website, it's very specific. And I think it sounds like the team at Inspiria can help people to determine what is the best media for them to use and the best placement. And, those are conversations, right? So
absolutely,
they're in the consulting business, just like a group like ours would be. But I think that Ronnie summed everything up pretty good.
Yes.
I think it's also time for us to, wrap this thing up.
And go back to work, right?
We're going to go back to work. Do you want to let people know how to find us?
I would love to. You can go to LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, where we will be streaming live every Wednesday at 1 p.m., having great guests like Ronnie Ram. You can come on back, check us out. And while you're there, if you could drop us a like, drop us a comment, or smash the subscribe button, whatever it is, wherever you are, it would be much appreciated. Show us a little love. And of course, if you ask a question live on the air, just like the folks like Mike Dardano and Jim Marlowe did, we will answer it live. And then you can say things like, well done, Joe and Ryan. And we'll say, thank you, Mike.
We'll say thank you, Mike. Hold on. Let me.
Camera 2. One more time. There you go. One more changeover. That was great.
I appreciate that. All right, everybody. Yeah. Well, we're out of here. Ryan, let's do this. See ya.